rewind back, if you would, to a couple of weeks ago, Saturday the 8th, I believe. I dragged myself out from my desk and tried to work out why I was there in the first place, and just why I was so hungover. I may have had a few ales during the last show. As the world congeals in front of me, I see a post-it note for myself reading, "Garr, don't forget you're a lord now. The papers are in the post." Now, I have no memory of being made a lord during the last show, and the validity of the title is highly suspect. But it highlights a certain reckless nature of mine, which has been the cause of this ongoing story of my continual failure to actually make it to Anthracon for the last 5 years. So come close, for I have a most unusual story to tell you. A story that takes me from meeting wild wolves in the frozen Arctic to risking life and limb in lost temples deep in the Cambodian jungle. It began, as these stories so often do, with a girl. She stole my heart and shattered it. Ah well, whores will have their trinkets. So to console myself, I did the only sane thing and resolved to get drunk and go to Anthracon. A good plan, and it started so well. I got completely ratted that night, and when I awoke I found myself on the grueling 30-hour bus ride, heading north from Oslo, bound to my old hometown of Hammerfest. If there's a bright centre to the universe, Hammerfest is the place that it's furthest from. Several miles north of the Arctic Circle, the town is one of the most desolate northernmost outposts of humanity. I'd left the place more than a decade previously and never thought I'd see its bleak landscape ever again. So, stranded there until the next bus back to Oslo, which was due a week later, I resigned myself to a week of exploring the town and the surrounding mountains and basking in the 24-hour sunlight. And so it was that a week later I was back in Oslo with barely a penny to my name. So I took to ingratiate myself with various fellow travellers in the hopes of simply blagging my way home, though only managing to perpetuate my predicament further by ending up in Stockholm. Sleeping rough on the streets is never fun, but sometimes necessary. It was by pure chance and good fortune, then, that I happened upon a bar that turned out to be holding an informal seminar on necromancy. Certain members of this organization of occultists have asked that I withhold the name, but either way, I was able to impress them sufficiently with my knowledge on the subject, as rudimentary as it was, that they saw fit to ordain me into the lower echelons of their order, and also, for my good fortune, to loan me funds to return home, on the proviso that I return to Stockholm to repay them before winter solstice. And so it was that I returned to England. But travelling is one of those things. It gets into your blood, and it was only a matter of time before I was back on the road. I had an appointment to keep after all. And that was when it started getting really interesting. But those stories will have to wait for next time. Be seeing you. Where was I? Ah, yes. Back to Stockholm for my appointment with the Order. I was somewhat surprised to find they didn't ask for monetary reimbursement, but rather they asked for my services as a courier, to take a satchel of documents to a member in the far north of Finland. And so I once again found myself in the frozen wastes of the Arctic. By the time I arrived, the first snows of winter had long since fallen. The man I was looking for turned out to be a reindeer herder of the old style, and was kind enough to give me food and lodgings with his family in exchange for help with the winter cull. I spent more than a month there, learning to track, capture, and slaughter the deers for the cull, as well as how to care for the ones who survived the winter. When I wasn't helping with the herd, I took to hiking through the surrounding countryside in the perpetual twilight that enshrouds the far north in these early winter's days. It is quite an eerie experience to walk through the silent forests, evergreen trees so heavily laden with snow that they appear as groups of white-robed giants, hunched over and trudging through the bitter cold. The frozen stillness only occasionally broken by a fleeting glimpse of wild deer, or the ever-amusing, excitable appearance of an Arctic fox. But it was a few days before I was due to leave that I got my greatest surprise. I'd stopped late one day to adjust my equipment to admire the ghostly view. As I made to get up, I was startled to see a large wolf sitting patiently watching me only 6 feet away. The wolf and I regarded each other with an air of cautious curiosity for several minutes. Few animals can stare quite as piercingly. But after those few tense moments, the wolf turned and padded off into the tree line, and I quickly strapped my skis back on and got moving. But as I made my way back to the cabin, I was stopped in my tracks by a long, mournful howl, answered and echoed seemingly all around. No recording can ever do justice to this sound, nor can it prepare you for the primal surge that courses through every nerve and thought. It's a sound you feel more than hear. I made my way back to the ranch, and several days later, I was once again in Stockholm, with very little money and no way home. So I stowed away on a ferry bound for Denmark, and made the slow and rather uneventful journey to Paris, where a few Masonic handshakes later, I had myself on a train back to London. The year was drawing to a close, and I had a lot of martial arts training to catch up on. Not to mention, I had to start planning a second attempt to get to Antwerp. But that story will wait for next time. Be seeing you.